joining us. We're talking about a little bit about constitutional carry. It is passing. Looks like we might have 3 states this year, this legislative cycle, on constitutional carry. But we're also talking about what happened on the House floor today.
Oh, not as bright as what's going on in Oklahoma. Yeah. So, it was H.R. 8 that passed today. I had a rule when we were in the majority. I never voted for H.R. less than 10 because these were the worst bills. Okay, right. Even when Republicans controlled it, H.R. less than 10 was typically a payback to the donors, right. And not typically a good bill. And now it's a payback to Soros and Bloomberg, now that the Democrats are in the majority. So anything H.R. less than 10 is going to be pure evil, pure evil with the Democrats in charge. H.R. 8 is no exception. It's a universal background check bill, and it's full strength. It's bad. It's the
it's outlawing all private sales.
That's right, which has been legal in this country since its founding.
So it's not really about the sale, so it's about registering a firearm.
It's the precursor, the necessary precursor to registration, which is the necessary precursor to confiscation.
Oh, but of course the ATF doesn't actually keep all those records.
Oh yeah, those records are just gone after.
And the NSA is not listening to us right now.
No, you can bet those records will be around, and it's the only way to know if it went through a background check. The only way to know if that bill is being enforced is to keep those records. Mm-hmm. And they will go back and check. They will go back and find those records.
Oh yeah, they're absolutely. You know that they're not on paper. That's not where they live, is it? So as bad as that is, I think it looks like H.R. 8 is not going to pass. Certainly not going to advance much further.
Hopefully not. I mean, there is one scenario they could attach it to an omnibus bill, right, because the Democrats do get to write the next omnibus bill.
But that's not out of some kind of trust for the Senate. I think the focus is on red flag.
Oh, red flag, yeah. That's more dangerous.
And it's worse. It is a worse measure
in
real time.
It is worse. I mean, it's hard to say that there's a bill worse than universal background checks, but one of the reasons this one is much worse is a lot of Republicans have been attracted to it like bugs
exactly.
to a neon light, and hopefully the bug zapper will work, because Republicans have no business. Anybody that believes in the Constitution and due process. Now, this is interesting. In opposing this bill, we may get some unlikely allies. Because this doesn't just strike the Second Amendment, it strikes at the Fourth Amendment and due process, the foundation of the Constitution.
Well, we see it pass now in multiple states. In Maryland, I'm sure you're familiar with the situation with the guy that knocked
bad
on the door
outcome.
5:17 a.m., 60-year-old guy, doesn't know why the police are there, and they shoot him. He's dead because they were there to take his guns.
Mm-hmm.
What a horrific outcome. Now picture that federally, and that's exactly what Rubio's bill would allow. That's exactly what Lindsey Graham just said yesterday we're going to hold a hearing on.
Yeah, and I think, didn't the AG, even though he's not a legislator, didn't he say this was the best gun control we can get, or something to that effect?
In his confirmation hearing, he and Dianne Feinstein had a little moment there where it was pure love, and Feinstein said, almost direct quote, I think, was, "I would love to work with you on that."
So let's be clear, Feinstein's the legislator and he's the enforcer, but what that means is it means that the bill will get enforced if it does pass, because you got an AG who's gung-ho to grab guns.
So how's that going to work now? We have the ATF doing raids nationwide. I mean, that's the image that we have there. And that raises the question, what's going to be the difference between Bill Barr and Janet Reno? I mean, if that's the legislation we're enforcing, so we cannot. That is horrific.
So we've got to keep an eye on that. It will pass at the speed of light. I mean, you're going to have to be responsive. Ideally you keep it from coming to the floor. I don't know how you do that in the House. I mean,
it's going to be hard to control here.
The Democrats, they took the majority with the funding of Bloomberg and Soros and a whole slew of anti-gun folks. And so they've got to pay back the people that put them in the majority.
Yep.
There's,
Clearly, yep.
even if it's going to cost them elections in the next cycle, Pelosi will make them walk the plank. I mean, in '94, it was right before the '94 election.
I remember that very well.
I do too, and they went straight forward. They passed the so-called assault weapons ban and the high magazine capacity ban. And yeah, that was another piece, and boom, they lost their majority. Yep. But that's what the Democrats do. Look, they're bold, and when they're in the majority, they take advantage of it. They go nurse their wounds and come back and take the majority again. Republicans, we don't ever reverse the bad stuff they do. And we end up losing the majority anyway. Look, we didn't repeal Obamacare because we had some squishy folks. We didn't build a wall in the 2 years where we had the White House, the Senate, and the House. What did we do? We passed a freaking Fix Nix bill. Right. Yeah. Which I warned a bunch of folks about.
That's right. And so the Republicans are the danger, and that is the problem that we face. Obama couldn't get Fix Nix passed,
right.
But the Republicans in the Congress, that's all they wanted to do. And so the problem with red flag is, once again, of course, the Democrat House is going to try to shoot that through. Of course, we can work on it. We are going to. We're going to extract every drop of political vengeance that can be extracted, and the pain is going to be there, but it's going to be, and we've got to hold the Republicans to it.
You know, the Veterans Administration already has their own little red flag program going. Right. It's part of the NICS database. Mm-hmm. If you apply for disability,
that's right,
and you say that somebody else manages your finances, they check a box that says, take the guns, take away their right to own a gun. And then they send a letter along with the award of the disability. I mean, this is the cruelest thing you could do to a veteran.
Right.
And because they put it in the same envelope, on the same letter, the veteran gets that, and most of them aren't going to contest it because they need the money to survive, and they think that money is contingent upon this Brady ruling that they've been thrown into the NICS database. So anyways, there's already the taste of red flag in the NICS, Fix NICS just made that a little bit worse. But what they're talking about now that they're doing it to disabled veterans, they're going to roll it out to the entire population. So your neighbor, instead of a bureaucrat at the VA, it can be your neighbor. It could be somebody on Facebook.
Somebody who didn't like your comment, and that's exactly what we see happening on the left coast and in the Northeast. That's what they're doing. That's what they're pushing for. Now it is being stopped. We just stopped it in North Dakota last week. Stop red flag.
It doesn't seem like you should have to stop that in a state like North Dakota.
No, the threat is very real, and that's why I know, and we appreciate you working with us on No Gun Control, No Deals pledge and our petition that we're working on. It's worked numerous times before with the veterans stuff. That was an Obama era program, and they're picking on some of the. It's just pure nastiness. It's between 200 and 300,000 is under the VA's own numbers, or the number of vets that they have rolled that out on. Now they want to go nationwide with it and pick on everyone. No Gun Control, No Deals is also what stopped it when they tried to roll it out to Social Security. That was going to be between 4 and 5 million.
And we were able to undo that.
That's right. Thanks in large part to the No Gun Control, No Deals petitions gathered then.
Yeah, because there was a Congressional Review Act.
That's right.
And Obama had implemented it in his waning months, but the Congressional Review Act has this short window, and you can rarely use the Congressional Review Act. Right. But in that case, we were able to, but we were not able to use it at the VA to undo that same policy, that bad policy they were putting into place at the Social Security Administration. It's still at the VA. There's no Congressional Review Act window of opportunity to undo it. And so what did they do here? When Republicans were in charge, they made it worse. Yeah. Fix Nix basically went into every administration, a branch of the administration, and said, we will take away your bonuses if you don't hand over the names.
Right. Yeah, and we're not talking about criminals, we're talking about people who maybe somebody misinterpreted a loud discussion as some kind of fight, and it got reported, and that got put in, and that was sitting out there somewhere. And now they're gathering it up. So this is this, fixed NICS was bad. Red flag is nationwide.
It's for everybody. Yeah, it's not. You might not think it's for you, but it's for everybody. You might think, hey, well, I've done nothing wrong. Like a lot of people on this due process issue or privacy issue. Well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, what's the problem? I don't have anything to worry about. Well, there's no due process here. So your neighbor makes something up. Your ex makes something up. A disgruntled employee makes something up, boom.
Right.
He said, she said, doesn't matter, presumed guilty until you can transcend multiple layers of bureaucracy, not even judicial review,
right,
to try and get your rights back. Imagine if your First Amendment worked that way.
Exactly. No, that would be...
It does in some countries.
It does. Thankfully not here, not
right,
yet, but this is what they want to do. So sign your No Gun Control, No Deals petition. You can click the link in the posting, and this can be stopped. We've done this. This is what the National Association for Gun Rights does, and we will do everything that needs to be done, everything that can be done. Can't do it without you. We need your signature. So,
and
please sign that petition.
If I can say one thing, behind the curtain here, different gun groups play this game differently, and the thing I love about NAGR, they are up here every day knocking down doors if the doors are locked, to get to legislators, and but you can only do so much inside the curtain. Yep. There's so much inertia here, and the only good things that happen here, or the only way you can stop bad things that are in motion, is forces from the outside, somewhere outside of 495, which is the Beltway. The forces have to come into play, and those are the people at NAGR. Those are the members. Yeah. I can talk to another congressman until I am blue in the face. I can convince them they are wrong, and they'll still go vote the other way unless they're hearing from constituents.
That's how we knock on those doors. You have to have couple 100,000
petitions
at minimum.
The phone lines melt. I mean, when they say melt the phone lines, I've seen phone lines melt. This is my office. There are only 3 rooms in my office, okay? There's this room, there's the foyer out there with the chief's room, and then there's the legislative shop. And we've only got 8 people working here. So if 8 people call at once into this office, it shuts the place down. Yeah. Because we don't want to let those go to voicemail. These are constituents, these are voters. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't do much good to call people that you don't elect or can't vote for, but when a member of Congress gets a phone call from somebody that can vote for them, that's critical. And it doesn't take many of those phone calls. I have been on the floor voting on legislation, and a member turns to me and it says, how many phone calls did you get on this issue? They're right, clearly dithering on whether to vote yay or nay. Yep. And they ask me how many phone calls I get, and I ask them, they're like, wow, I got 12 against it and 3 for it. Yeah. We represent 750,000 people. To
this
get,
is where your voice really counts.
Yeah, I mean,
it really does.
To get 12 phone calls on an issue, yeah, it's like, that's not melting the phone lines, yeah, but that is like paying attention. Yeah. That's a lot of calls from constituents.
Yeah. And thanks to you guys' work, when we do activate that, and the battle has started. Lindsey Graham says he's going to hold hearings on red flag. Rubio's introduced the bill, Marco Rubio, both Republicans. Unfortunately, the White House Commission and the White House advisors are endorsing the bill, or at least the concept. And so it's game on. The first step is sign the petition. That gets the ball rolling. But when we've turned on those phones in the past, you guys have melted the phone lines. We're talking 50, 100, 200 phone calls into the congressional office. These are for guys who freak out about 12.
That's
so
right.
That's where we've got to go. First step is that petition.
Make the petition stop. Make the phone call stop. Make the letters stop.
Yep. Scott Ridgel.
I'm not mentioning any names, but that was a colleague who I think got burned out.
He did. He's not here anymore. He's tired of getting whacked with Florida gun control.
I've been around long enough to see some congressmen back certain bills and then not come back. Yep. One of the backers, the prime sponsor of fixed NICS in the House, is not here. Yep. didn't win a re-election.
Yeah, and you saw that. You saw the Democrats take, they took advantage of the blue wave, but you saw the Republicans who had supported gun control, they were the first ones to go down. They got opposed consistently.
The blue wave doesn't like you just because you vote for gun control.
No.
What happens is the blue wave comes and there's no red rock there to stop it.
That's right. The cripples are who got picked off.
Yeah.
So that's what the House has to see. It's what the Senate has to see. This,
and
time has come.
I mean, some of them are replaced with Democrats, and I could get in trouble for saying this, but there's a few of them I don't mind who aren't here because of that.
Well, we appreciate that, and your work here is just, it's a bright spot in a sea of frustration.
This is my Commonwealth here, Kentucky.
That's right.
You were talking about red flag laws. I'm looking at a red, white, and blue flag here.
That's right.
I would prefer to go back to red, white, and blue and not do the red flag stuff.
That's right. Our founding fathers and those of us who, that's who they were thinking of. They said for ourselves and our posterity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that flag stands for. And what Republicans are looking at in the Senate right now with red flag is enough to make my ancestors who did fight and die here, and all of those who have participated, roll in their graves. It is disgusting, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop.
Well, I'm hoping that along with NAGR, we pick up some NAGR. We pick up some other allies, and we might, because you just never know when you get in these fights who's going to be against you and who's going to be for you. What I appreciate from you all too is there's a lot of fake news out there. You guys watch every vote that happens here in the House.
Yes, we do.
And you separate the wheat from the chaff, because you can't tell based on TV.
Right.
People.
No, and well, that wasn't the vote. This was the vote over here. You have to pay attention to this.
Right.
No. This is what was determinative. This is what decided that vote.
Sometimes I'm a thorn in the side of the GOP here.
I appreciate that. I think it's maybe more than sometimes.
And I was walking to votes yesterday with a Democrat, and she said, "How long till they kick you out of this place?" Because they don't like the truth, right? And I said, "Well, I'm not sure they ever will, because they all campaign like me. They just don't vote like me, right?"
Yes.
I'm actually sticking to principles more than they are. So to kick me out would be to admit they're abandoning their principles,
yes,
their commitment to the Constitution and written law, and not interpreting things in a different way than they were intended.
That's right.
So
once again, we've got to stop red flag. The House has already passed gun control with H.R. 8, but that's not really the threat. The threat is the red flag laws, which the Republicans in the Senate are already supporting. We can shut that down. We have to work on it. So please sign your No Gun Controls, No Deal petition and clear the deck for action, because that's just the first step. The battle has begun in earnest.
Take 60 votes in the Senate, but you got enough weak Republicans. Not just weak. I mean, they're strong for red flag. They need to back off. There's a few that
and we're working on that.
And that's the danger, is if they get that up for a vote.
Indeed.
There are a few that are. I'm telling you, with every vote, there are always some legislators who walk to the floor undecided.
Yep.
That's how close it is.
Yep.
I've walked to the floor undecided. I hate to say this. I mean, most of these bills are a crap sandwich, right? But when you know where your constituents stand on this, particularly the ones who activate during elections, like the Second Amendment groups, then it makes it easier to know how to vote.
That's right. That's what we'll do. So, thank you, Thomas.
Thanks, Zach.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.